but certainly Toronto has a great chance. I do think a lot of people are overlooking the Raptors, who, won 59 games, I believe it was, last year. And really their only obstacle in the past 2 seasons has been LeBron James, who's been their kryptonite. But with him now in the West, and the fact that Kawhi Leonard is better than DeMar DeRozan, he's also a better three-point shooter than DeRozan, and you added Danny Green, who's a proven champion, good defender, smart player, a winner, and a good three-point shooter. Toronto has gotten better, and they're going to be a tough matchup for the Boston Celtics. So, yeah, I think they are right now, certainly would have to be the Celtics' number 1 competition, but Philadelphia is talented. How much their young guys, Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, can mature is really their key. And then a dark horse is Milwaukee with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Mike Budenholzer, who's a very good coach moving over from Atlanta. So I think Milwaukee is going to be a surprise team that makes a little noise in the East as well.
Yeah, and I suppose that brings us on, as we talk to Eastern Conference, we see Dwight Howard now making a move to the Washington Wizards, trying to reunite a career that promised so much when he broke out at Orlando Magic. And maybe Washington Wizards always had probably one of the best backcourts in the NBA. Win on song, we all know what John Wall and Bradley Beal are capable of. Is it maybe a time Dwight Howard going in there with no expectations on a low enough salary for Dwight Howard? Is it a chance maybe if he can rediscover his form as a big man up top that it might give Washington Wizards ammunition as well to push on?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, if Dwight Howard can basically do the things that virtually every team has wanted him to do, certainly at least since he left Orlando, and that's rebound, defend, run the floor, and get easy buckets. Dwight has had problems and clashed with teammates and coaching staffs because he has wanted to be on the post and have them feed him as a post player and let him go to work offensively. That's not necessarily the best thing he's at, and also, or the thing he's best at, and also that doesn't really fit today's NBA, especially if the guy is only so skilled in the post. I mean, it's not like he's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Hakeem Olajuwon in the post. So if Dwight, who has been humbled, there's no question, he's moved around, bounced around from team to team over the past few years. He's no longer regarded as a superstar or even an all-star. Even though he put up good numbers last year, 16 points, 12 rebounds a game, shot a good percentage. If he will go to Washington and focus on rebounding, defending, and then, as I said, running the floor to get easy buckets, he could be effective for the Wizards, and that could help their backcourt of Wall and Beal and help them emerge as, a really tough team that could go deep in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. I don't think they could win the East, but they could certainly pull off an upset in the first or second round and, put a scare in some of the top contenders in the East.
And another interesting domino has seen Blake Griffin fall into the Eastern Conference with Detroit Pistons. And you have probably two of the most, Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, that's a real menacing sort of front court option. And Reggie Jackson then in the backcourt, is it just mainly that outside of Detroit's Pistons starting 5, if they could, if the rest of it, maybe the backup, if they'd have to keep their top 5 guys healthy, is there enough depth maybe in the Pistons, or they're lacking depth?
Yeah, the depth is a question, but also their 2 best players, as you mentioned. If you want to throw Reggie Jackson in, you can, but Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, they're different types of players. And in terms of today's NBA, you see a lot of stretch fours. You even see some centers shooting 3-pointers. Not true with Drummond and Blake. Now, that can be a strength. We saw Memphis utilize Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol. They were a team that didn't shoot a lot of 3-pointers and had some success a few years ago. So it'll be interesting to see. It's a good challenge for Dwayne Casey as the head coach. Stan Van Gundy, who I thought was a good head coach, he wasn't able to really bring that squad together in Detroit. And we'll see if Dwayne Casey does. If he can make that a viable team, like a team that fights for home court advantage in the Eastern Conference, which is a big if, then he would certainly be in the running for Coach of the Year again. But I think that's going to be easier said than done. I don't expect that much from Detroit. Maybe, they'll make the playoffs, but that's about all I expect. Even though they have two stars, as you mentioned, and Reggie Jackson, who's a really good point guard. But they have to find that magic elixir that brings that team together and helps them play up to their potential.
And I suppose lastly, before we move away from the Eastern Conference now, three fable franchises all over the world where people will recognise: the Miami Heat, Chicago Bulls and the New York Knicks. And for many people over the last few years to see those franchises slip right down towards the bottom rankings of the NBA, do you think one of those is about to re-emerge again, or do you think they're still going to be in rebuild mode for a few years to come?
No, they're not emerging this year for sure. The Knicks, their hope is that they can get a big-time free agent next summer. There's been rumblings that Kevin Durant could go there. Certainly, that would be a huge turnaround for the Knicks. They need Kristaps Porzingis to be healthy, and then maybe if they add someone else with Kevin Durant as far as a free agent, maybe a Kyrie Irving, a Jimmy Butler. And then if their rookie Kevin Knox can emerge and, as a budding star, you can see the Knicks turn things around. Miami is kind of locked as far as contracts into some mediocre players, so I don't see them. Even if Jimmy Butler, they've been trying to trade for him, even if they get him, that's not going to make them a contender in the East or anything like that. And then Chicago has some young guys that are still growing and developing and show some promise, but they're a few years away, if that, from these guys really beginning to make noise.
Yeah, so Chris, looking at it there, as you said, you look at the Eastern Conference, you're looking at, you said Boston with Haywood, Irvine and Al Horford, three All-Stars really to be the front runners there to win the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, Boston's the front runner. It's not an automatic. Some people think it's an automatic. I don't. But I would say they are the favorite.
Yeah, and I suppose, Chris Broussard, if I can turn our attentions now to the Western Conference, and speaking about many people here, they see this is an absolute shootout. You could possibly name 6 teams here that if they were in the Eastern Conference, many people would tip them as favourites. But I just want to tip on one team there as well that who went in. I remember we did a conference last year. We spoke to Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum as they were entering the playoffs with Portland Trailblazers, and they went on a 12 unbeaten match run. And they said it was going to be different this time going into playoffs, that they were going to perform with Nurkic in there. And straight again, playoff history, Portland Trailblazers, they fall again in the first round. Is it a franchise that are you looking now at Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum and saying this is the last crack for these guys to prove themselves in the playoffs?
Well, look, obviously what happened last year was disappointing, and it stunned that franchise and those players. So they're obviously coming back with a chip on their shoulder this year. But even at their best, they're probably second round playoff team. At best, they're not a contender. They're not going to be a contender in the Western Conference. They have to figure out a way to try to add a third star to Lillard and McCollum.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do, especially without giving up one of those. I would not give up one of those two guys, but I would try to use my other pieces, draft picks, other players, to try to get that third star, front court star, to go along with those two guards. Those two guys are special, but without a third guy, they're not going to make any noise in the West.
I was speaking to Chris Broussard. I was speaking to Steve Kyler from Basketball Insiders, and he's wrote maybe a dark horse to make a run in the playoffs he fancied this year. And the Western Conference was Denver with Jokic and Jamal Murray and Gary Harris and Isaiah Thomas. Do you think maybe this is Denver new look sort of Denver team? Is it too new really at this year to expect too much from them?
Yeah, I mean, they'll be doing well to make the playoffs. Look, after Golden State and I would say Houston, although they had a tough opening night against New Orleans, after that, there are 7 teams bunched up together. The Lakers, Oklahoma City, Utah, Minnesota, if Jimmy Butler, gets his head screwed on straight. Portland, Denver, you throw in that group. Maybe the LA Clippers. I don't know if I said Oklahoma City, Utah. I'm probably missing somebody, but there's a group of teams that are going to fight out for those last 6 playoff spots, and Denver's in that mix. So they could be a team that could finish anywhere from 5th to even 9th in the West. So I don't look at them as a team that could, really go that deep in the Western Conference playoffs, but they certainly can get there, maybe win around or scare a higher seeded team in the first round.
And I suppose the next team I want to bring you on to, Chris, is the San Antonio Spurs. We all know such a fabled franchise, such year on San Antonio Spurs, deadly in the Western playoffs. The one team that most clubs wanted to avoid given their playoff history, with the likes of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Kawhi Leonard, as we know, moved on. This San Antonio Spurs, it's a different challenge that Greg Popovich faces. And for the first time in a long time, that people are writing off the Popovich and the Spurs to actually even make the playoffs, people are suggesting. And do you think that's an unfair assessment with players of LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan, Paul Gasol, Rudy Gay? Do the Spurs, we know they're a renowned playoff team.
Yeah, that's actually one of the teams, or the team that I forgot to mention in that group of 6 or 7 in the West. I fully expect the Spurs to make the playoffs. I think that Greg Popovich makes a habit of, maximizing his team's potential. Certainly, DeMar DeRozan, as good as he is not as good as Kawhi Leonard. However, remember last year without Kawhi Leonard, for all but 9 games, they won 47 games. I expect them to make the playoffs. Like you said, they've got 2. I don't think DeMar DeRozan will be an all-star in the West, but he's still an all-star player, all-star caliber player. So in DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge, you have 2 stars. And then you got a nice group of supporting players around them that Popovich will get the most out of. They're going to miss DeJounte Murray, who I think would have been a very good player for them this year as a point guard with his injury. But I think people are sorely underestimating the San Antonio Spurs, and it's a mistake to do that.
Yeah, and I suppose, Chris, probably one of the big experiments of last year in relation to the NBA season was to see how would Paul George and Carmelo Anthony get on in OKC with Russell Westbrook. We know for a fact that Carmelo Anthony experiment didn't work out with OKC. How do you think he's going to fit in at the Houston Rockets? And is he the sort of guy to lead a second 5? Is Carmelo Anthony a 6th man?
Well, he's not even their 6th man. I mean, that would be Eric Gordon. But he can be. He's coming off the bench. Carmelo Anthony needs to recognize that at this point in his career, he's no longer a star. He's looking at LeBron James and saying, "Hey, LeBron and I came in together. He's still a star. I'm still in my prime." No, he needs to look at Dwayne Wade, who is no longer a star player and has accepted that. He needs to look at Chris Bosh, who's retired and came in with LeBron. I'm not saying Melo should retire, but I'm saying he's in his 16th year. He is past his prime. He's no longer a star in this league. And the sooner he recognizes and accepts that, the better he'll be as a 6th man or as a guy off the bench, the more productive he'll be for the Rockets, and the easier he'll be able to accept that role as a role player. He thinks he's still a part of a big 3 of James Harden, Chris Paul, and Melo. He's not. He's not even probably their 4th most important player. Eric Gordon and Clint Capella are bigger cogs for Houston than Melo. And so he has to accept that and realize there's no slight on him. He's a Hall of Fame player, but his best years are behind him. And so he needs to either retire or accept that he's going to be a role player from this point forward.
And Houston Rockets were probably the nearest team to the Golden State Warriors. They came the closest possibly of turning them over. And do you think Mike Antonio, do you think he can get more out of Houston, or do you think Houston probably peaked last year and that's the best he can hope for? We know Golden State have gone on again. They've added DeMarcus Cousins, Boogie, who probably we won't see until the latter end of the NBA season and come the playoffs. And do you think for Houston they have mixed it around? They've brought in Brandon Knight, they've brought in Michael Carter-Williams. Is it enough though? Have Houston, they need to do more?
Enough. I don't think it's enough. They may have enough to be the second best team in the West, but I don't think they have enough to beat Golden State. If Golden State doesn't win it, it's because a few of their top players or one of them got hurt, or they had a problem with egos or complacency or whatever. But no team is better than them, including the Houston Rockets. Houston, I can make a strong argument, is taking a step back because Trevor Ariza has been lost to Phoenix. He was a very good defender for them. Luke Baamute is gone. And Jeff Bzdelik, who was their defensive coach, he retired before the season began. And judging by game one against New Orleans when they gave up, I think, 131 points, they have not replaced Bzdelik or his defensive mentality and emphasis. So they very well may have taken a step back. But no, they're not better and won't beat Golden State.
Yeah, and Chris, last year we saw the breakout of Kyle Kuzma at the Lakers, and arguably he outdid Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball was a big talking point, but at the end of the year everyone was on about Kuzma. And with James coming in and with Rondo there and Brandon Ingram probably in the forward line, is it a case maybe as the year go by we could see at the end of next year that Lonzo Ball could be actually on the trading block for the Lakers?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Lonzo Ball at this point, he's a role player for the Lakers. It's no longer about Lonzo Ball. It's about LeBron James and Brandon Ingram emerging as that second star, and then what star the Lakers can add through free agency. That's what it's about. Lonzo, sure, if he plays well, improves his game, and emerges as a star, that'd be great. But right now, that's not the focus. And I got to be honest, in a few months or even maybe weeks, we won't be talking much about Lonzo Ball. He will be a role player at best, unless, again, he has some emergence that we don't see coming at this point.
Yeah, and Chris, many people said one of the most valuable assets in the NBA that who probably teams are looking as the missing block that can maybe challenge the Golden State Warriors if they could acquire this asset is Antonio Davis from New Orleans. And Antonio Davis, do you think maybe after this year he's committed? I know he's committed to the New Orleans franchise, but is he the one player that teams are looking at, like the Lakers, like Houston franchise are looking at, if we can get Davis on board up in the front court, that he's the missing ingredient?
No, he's not the one player. They got several players like that. A lot of teams would love to get their hands on Kevin Durant. If he leaves Golden State this summer, he would be the first player. And then after him, Anthony Davis, if he wants to leave New Orleans, certainly teams are going to go after him. He recently signed with LeBron James' agent, Rich Paul. So there's a decent chance that he could end up with the Lakers for sure. But right now, I know this year he's going to be in New Orleans. And, if they have a great year and they looked great on opening night, then you never know. Maybe he would want to stay in New Orleans. We'll just have to wait and see on him. And
finally, just, Chris, the last point before I leave you now. I know I'm dragging you on here. Just the last point. OKC Thunder. A few years back, that franchise that they had with Westbrook, Harden, Durant, Ibaka. Westbrook is the only one still surviving there. Paul George has been added. Do you think Russell Westbrook's chances of getting an NBA ring are evaded and that was his best chance? Or is he going to have to leave OKC to get that ring?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get a ring. His best chance was with Kevin Durant. He's going to go down in history as the only player ever to average a triple-double in 2 seasons, unless he does it again for 3. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He'll be iconic because of his triple-double accomplishment, but he won't win a ring.
On that note, Chris Broussard, it's been a pleasure talking to you on the airwaves this evening, especially what a week it has been in relation to basketball here in Ireland and our neighbours in Great Britain as well. We thank you for taking the time to speak to us this evening online, Chris, and on live on air, and we'll speak to you sometime again, please God, in the near future.